Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hey there, how are you? I hope you all in very good conditions today. So my name is Nur Hamidah from English Education Department with Syarif Hidayatullah, Jakarta. And guess what I'm going to do today? Yep, that's right. I'm going to retell a story from the novel that I have read before by Linda Supark, and the title is Prairie, Lotus. I read this novel like a month ago, I guess, and I can tell that this kind of story is barely exists among all of the stories that I have read. And about what kind of story that I'm talking about, why don't we just find out together, shall we? Alright, so the beginning of this novel starts with describing about a complicated life of a half Chinese girl named Hanna and her father, who is white in the 19th century. After her mother died, Hanna's father, hoping to have a fresh start, and moved to the town of La Forge. Actually, they have been moving a lot. They have been having trouble finding a town that will accept Hanna, which is half Chinese, and finally decide to settle in La Forge because Hanna's father, now the constable in that town, named Mr. Harris, which is known as a nice and fair man. Back then, since she was 5 years old, Hanna have experienced a bad memories of white people. There's a riot happened which made at least 15 Chinese settlements had been lynched, and their house and business had been ransacked, looted, and burned. On the other side, Hanna's mother trying to help her friend's noodle shop and end up overcome and collapse, which made her lungs were badly damaged. And she been suffering for 6 years and then passed away. Before arrive at La Forge, Hanna has never been to school. She learned with Mama and her aunt, Miss Lona, through the book she aunt gave her. Mama had always wanted her to go to school. But Papa don't want Hanna to go to school. He said she would cause a trouble, then her father and her wouldn't make a success in this town and end up moving again. After Hanna convinced Papa that going to school is one of Mama's last wish, finally Papa going to talk with Mr. Harris if that's possible for Hanna to school here. And finally, Hanna will going to school under Miss Walters, and if there's any trouble, Miss Walters is the one who would make a decision. At the school, Hanna even have to wear a bonnet, so the other students didn't surprise about her appearance. She would take off her bonnet until she was ready. The next day at school, before entering the class, Hanna hearing the girls talking about her, and they said why she didn't take off her bonnet. They think maybe Hanna have a scars to hide. So when entering the class, Hanna decided to take off her bonnet, and all her classmates' reaction is full of confusion and shock to know that Hanna is half Chinese. In the classroom, there's a time where the students have to come to the front of the class and tell where they're from. Hanna was afraid that everyone would hate her, but surprisingly, everyone in the classroom excited to ask when she said she was from California. And there's one boy named Sam asked if she eat orange in California, and she said that she eat orange in California nearly every day. While in that time, orange is hard to find in La Forge. The folks of La Forge start to recognize Hanna is half Chinese and go to school with their children. So the school board called a meeting to discuss about Hanna and her father. Hanna followed to the meeting secretly to hear what the folks talking about her, and then Sam did the same like Hanna. He is being nice to her and asking about orange again like in the classroom back then. Overheard the meetings, turns out it doesn't going well. Even when Miss Walters stated that Hanna is good students and didn't cause any trouble, but the folks said that they don't want their children in the same classroom with Hanna, and said that Hanna don't belong here. And to support Miss Walters' opinions, Mr. Harris said Ben Edmund, Hanna's father, is a good man who helped him build his house back when he is in Kansas, and he is a good neighbor, same like Hanna. In the middle of argue, there's one guy who did a racism and said that their kids couldn't in the same class with Indians. So did the Chinaman. Hanna thought that it wasn't fair that people thought she should be kicked out of school because she was half Chinese. The next morning after folk meeting, the half class almost empty. Many students were absent, and Hanna know it's all because her presence. Dolly, which is Hanna chairman, even moved to different seats. Miss Walter asked the teachers didn't mention about the absence, and the morning lesson just happened like usual. From this, Hanna began treated unfair by other students. Start with her ink and paper was gone. The next day, it's even worse. There's only 5 students left. Hanna, Bess, Sadie, who is Bess' sisters, Sam's, and Dolly. The rest of them were absent. Real reasons we already know that every parent doesn't want their kids in the same classroom with Hanna. Hanna couldn't stand that other parents stop their children for getting an education, so she thinks that maybe she have to leave the schools for their succeed. When the break for lunch time comes, Dolly, who never acts nice to Hanna, asks if Hanna would go walk together with her. Hanna dubbed Dolly nice intentions and end up agree with her questions. They walk. Dolly kept showing annoying act until she pulled a little closer to Hanna and said, "Your eyes. It's shaped so different. Is it hard for you to see?" Hanna hadn't realized that she's been holding her breath until that moment. From that, Hanna realized that Dolly have always been unrespectful to her as a Chinese man. In there, Dolly's father with his wagon caught her daughter with Hanna and yelled that she have to come back home with him and said that it's lucky people don't see you with Hanna in the streets. That would disgrace our family. The next morning in the class, there's only left Bess and Hanna. Miss Walters planning to early graduate for them. When Hanna said about early graduate to her father, he said that it's for all the students' best. And Miss Walters have found solutions that Hanna could graduate and the folks could bring their children back to school again. But the only one Hanna wants is to have a friend in the school like other normal students, not just graduate like that. She felt treated unfair, but she just kept her thought for herself because she didn't have any courage to say that to her father. After Hanna get her graduate certificate, Sam, like her father's shops, is already being built. Then they're planning an opening party for her father's new shops. Hanna wanted to be a seamstress in her father's shops, but her father rejected and yelled to her that he will still hire other people. Hanna upset and asked why. And finally, her father said that since the beginning, folks talk that it wasn't right about white men marrying Chinese women. And the reason Hanna's father wanted to hear seamstress, even though Hanna could sue better, because the folks said that Hanna's father taking advantage by making Hanna like his servant. Hanna convinced her dad to borrow his money and promised to her dad that she could just sue and find an assistant then if there's someone who liked her dress. And if it didn't make it, she would give back the money. Then she planning to hire Bess Harris to be her assistant, even though Bess planned to teach this fall, but Bess finally admitted to be her assistant. The next day, Bess' mother, Mrs. Harris, come to the shop to see her daughter, and there Hanna should face another indignity. After seeing around, looking the place where Bess worked, she glad that the place is clean, and Hanna asked why she is surprised, and Bess' mother said that mostly Chinamen didn't have the same standard of cleanliness like that. Hanna had been called dirty Chinaman more times than she could count. After that, Hanna stood up for herself by telling a story of the rail workers who is white and Chinese, where the Chinese workers came way more cleaner and the workers more healthier than the white men workers. After that, Bess' mother said that she didn't mean to open her and just leave. Here come to this part. After that, Hanna is walking down the streets to meet someone, but then being assaulted by two drunk men, which one of them Dolly's father, Mr. Swenson. They accost Hanna on the street, leer and make rude comments before one seizes her harshly, injuring her and ripping her dress. After that accident, Bess said Hanna should report what happened to her father, but she doesn't tell him. And ironically, rumors began to spread through the town that Hanna broke the attack on herself. Next morning, Hanna didn't go to the church with her father, so the father go by himself. After coming home, Hanna's father yelled to Hanna that a dozen of folks said that they wouldn't attend the opening and won't be customers either. Then Hanna lies and said that she don't know anything. She's been in the shop since yesterday afternoon with Bess and didn't hear anything. But Hanna worrying about the situations that folks blame her and said that she caused a trouble that make people doesn't want to attend the opening party of her father's shops. Hanna finally asked Bess for her help to convince the ladies of La Forge because she could do it and they will listen to her. So Hanna begged for Bess to help her. And finally, Bess have done help to tell the truth about Hanna with the help of Miss Walters too. And surprisingly, in the next day, in the opening of Hanna's father's shops, They are already filled with a line of men and women that want to come to the opening of the shops. The end. Well, I guess this kind of story have give you several reasons to be happy just the way you are. So I'm glad that this story have a main character who already find her own way to find happiness to live in the middle of indignity and prejudice. So there's a problem that our world faces today, which included in this story, which is racism, and done by people with narrow mind. And I hope we can always build a good relationship and tolerance with other people that have many differences. So I guess this is the end. So goodbye. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.